Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Annette Hines, and she's here to share with us her new memoir, Butterflies and Second Chances, a mom's memoir of love and loss. Now, Annette has been practicing in the area of special needs, elder law, and estate planning for over 20 years. She received her JD from Howard University and earned an MBA at Suffolk University and her BA from the University of Vermont. Her clients include individuals and families with special needs and elders and others in the community. So let's welcome to the show, Annette Hines.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
What a joy it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. My goodness, I mean, it was heart-wrenching. There's so much that you just really poured into this book.
Yes, it's pretty hard to be that open and raw and tell a story that, doesn't have tons of happy moments in it, but it was so important for me to get this all down.
So you start off your book talking about your pregnancy with Elizabeth and how difficult that was. And I'd like for you to share with our listeners about that, because it really does explain kind of as we're moving forward throughout your book, just some of the things that you had to endure and overcome and just work through.
Yeah, I like to say she kind of burst into the world. She was a 29-week, 2-pound preemie, and it was a very scary birth. A lot of moving, a lot of crisis, just not really knowing as a first-time parent and as a younger parent in my 20s, not really knowing what to expect or not knowing what was going to happen next. And so that started my life as an advocate for my daughter, my family, and also just needing to kind of grow up quick and start parenting from second one with her.
At what point did you realize that there was something going on with Elizabeth?
We knew that she was going to be behind, and when they discharged her from the NICU, we really thought she was going to be okay, that she was typical. She kind of got that clean bill of health, just going to need to catch up, but she wasn't meeting all of her milestones, and being the very type A personality that I am, I read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people. And finally, my mom came to visit. And, it's always the moms that know. And she noticed that Elizabeth wasn't sitting up, wasn't holding her head up. And even though she was a preemie, it just seemed like things were not right. And then Elizabeth started having these seizures. And so we ended up in the ER and we found out that there was a lot more going on.
What ended up being the diagnosis for Elizabeth?
After a long journey, she was about 2.5 when we finally got diagnosed with mitochondrial disease, which is a rare disorder and hadn't really been around that long. I think it was discovered in 1989, and this was, the late 90s, so we're talking 10 years. Um, so for us, there was still a lot of questions, a lot of mystery, and just not a lot of answers to go along with them. And we just needed to kind of treat each symptom as it came along. But we really were just trying hard just to be a family and to enjoy our lives and do typical things.
So that for that 2-year period, I mean, you guys were really trying to figure out what was going on before she was, diagnosed.
Yeah, we had a lot of back and forth with some doctors. Some of the treatment that we got was great, some of it not so supportive, and it really started to dawn on me that I was really going to have to become Elizabeth's expert. I was going to have to be the expert in the Elizabeth, disease or the Elizabeth diagnosis because there were a lot of professionals, and each had some piece, but there wasn't one place to go for all the answers.
So did you start keeping files on Elizabeth yourself? It sounds like because you just, with your type A personality, you're just really diving into all the information and trying to find the answer.
Yeah, I really did that. We had a lot of paper. I still have all the Elizabeth paper. I haven't gotten rid of any of it yet. But besides that, I just you know, I have to say I wasn't it wasn't a quick transformation for me. As I talk about in the book, I went through a lot of emotions, and I spent a lot of time in the early years just being mad about everything, that, this was, kind of my life, and it wasn't what I expected, and I was mad and upset that she, had to have this life herself, and it took me a long time before I got to the beauty of it all. And that's why I thought it was so important to write the book, because in the early days it was very lonely, and I really didn't have a lot of places to turn for support. There were a lot of people who were feeling for me. There was family and there were some friends, but nobody who really kind of got where I was at that time. It's kind of pre-internet, and not really um, a lot of places for support groups or chats or anything like that. So it just was such a long, long journey, a long process. So even though I started trying to become a good advocate and I started trying to become the expert, it took me a long road to get there.
I've got so many questions for you here. I do want to get into your story before we start talking about how your story actually is helping people today. We also talk about, and you share in your book about how, you were married and then the marriage kind of falls apart.
Yeah, that's just an unfortunate reality for so many of us with special needs kids or kids with special healthcare needs. It's it's a tragedy, but it's true that people just digest these things differently, and they deal with this kind of trauma differently. And with Elizabeth, there was trauma all the time. There was so much emotional assault because there were always crises to deal with. There were always things going wrong, and um, my husband and I just were not on the same page, and it was challenging to kind of connect, and the marriage just disintegrated.
You hear that happening so many times when people go through really difficult situations, and it really puts a lot of strain on a marriage. It doesn't make one person bad or better than the other or anything like that. It's just a lot of stress.
Yeah, the stress definitely killed us, and just again not being able to be on the same page about um, just how to take action and how to do things. Um, he was very depressed and had a hard time just trying to make decisions about anything, and I just felt the burden and the weight of it all.
Yeah, for sure. You had to be the strong one for your family. Yeah, because you have other children as well.
Yeah, so in between, before my marriage split up, we did have another daughter, Caroline, who was such a joy. It was really healing to have a different birth experience and a different, baby experience. Um, it's I know it's kind of hurtful, and some people cringe when I call Caroline my do-over baby, and I know that's not awesome for me to say that, but it's just the honest, raw truth of it all. I just wanted an experience like everybody else had, and it was really good for me. It was really good for our family, and the sibling relationship was really good for both of them. So I'm so happy that we did that. But our marriage certainly was teetering on its edge before that. And when Caroline was born, that was kind of the death toll, because I think she was maybe 12 months old when we split.
That's gotta been so difficult during that time. Here you are with two children, and one that's, just a year.
Yes, I could not have planned that worse.
Oh
It
my
was quite a
goodness.
disaster.
I'm so sorry. Because I mean, that isn't that how it goes, though. It seems like when it rains, it pours, and we're hit with everything. But I really applaud you because it really shows like the strength of a person's character being able to go through such difficult times.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm not sure I felt so strong at the time. Looking back at it, I was able to, through writing the book, really reflect back on a lot of the things that had happened in the early years, and just feel, proud of what we as a family were able to accomplish. I was also really lucky. Had a supportive family. My mom actually moved in with me, and she was retiring soon, and she was really there and able to help me. Not everybody has that in their life, but it saved us for sure, because having that extra pair of hands, and although she was not always wonderful with Elizabeth's medical issues, she was great with Caroline, and she was a loving grandma to Elizabeth. And it was nice because I'm not sure how many of your listeners experience this situation, but there is no daycare. There is no after school program for kids like Elizabeth. When you have all of the medical issues that she had, seizures and being in a wheelchair, and having a G tube to feed her, you can't just go to your local after school program or your local daycare for the support that you need to work. So having my mom available was just the most awesome thing on the planet.
Oh, I'm so glad you had that support. And it's interesting as people read your book, Butterflies and Second Chances, they're going to actually see how this has all shaped your career. And I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, well, I had just finished law school when I had Elizabeth, hadn't even taken the bar yet. And I definitely had already committed myself to doing some kind of civil rights work. But hadn't really decided what. Maybe, women's issues, women and children, wasn't really sure. But then along comes Elizabeth, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So ever since then, it's been several decades now, I have really focused only on people with special needs and special healthcare needs. So I've really been able to fulfill, kind of the original goals that I had, and do it in such a meaningful way. Elizabeth just completely informed my career, and it's a career that I love. I really just am so grateful that she brought me into this world.
It sounds like you're so passionate about what you do that you're really at the right place, helping people. So, what are some of the first steps like a parent should take if they know that they're having a child that has special needs?
Well, I think there's a couple of key things that really people should be focusing on. And they're two of the things that we talked about early on. Becoming that expert, not expecting that somebody else is going to have all the answers. It's easier now with electronic versions of books and everything that you're able to find out on the internet, but there's also a lot more groups. And I think that getting out there and meeting with other parents and joining groups and going to conferences and local meetings, it's so helpful. Not everybody has your situation, but at the same time, you're learning something from everybody's approach, and you're going to figure out what fits for you and what your journey is going to look like. At the same time, that kind of leads us into the second thing that I think is so important, and that's building your team. And that team's going to be some professionals, but it's also going to be maybe your family members, maybe other people in the community, maybe it's teachers and therapists. It's it's the team that's going to help you not only raise your child, but be part of the vision for the future. And, you know, that can look so different depending on what your family's needs are, what your child's needs are. But it takes a while to find those good people. There's a lot of trial and error. Some people fit for a season and then they're not, part of the team anymore because things change. And so getting good at identifying people, training them up and, being that leader of the team, it takes a bit. But it's part of the journey, and when you are really experienced and gifted at that, then you've got everything you need for success.
That's so important. I think a lot of times when people have these types of situations, they are surrounded by a group of medical professionals or support people. And, a lot of times they think that they have to be there forever instead of realizing this person's just here for a season.
Right, right, exactly. I mean, we've certainly had different people through our lives. One of the things that was so key to our survival and support, and really beyond that, to actually having Elizabeth thrive and have a great life, was nurses. We needed home care, very, for most of her life, because her medical needs were so 24/7. It just couldn't be done by one person. It wasn't possible. And we've had, nurses who have been with us a long time, and we've had nurses who stayed for a short period of time, but everybody was contributing and everybody had their part to play on the team, on Team Elizabeth. In fact, when we did the first ever walk for Mito, MitoAction.org was an organization that got started when Elizabeth was young, actually, and it was great for family support. So we called it Team Elizabeth, and we had a big team out there walking for her because it kind of showed what our team looked like at that time. But the nursing has been key for us, and finding those special people who can deliver care in your home, which is a very delicate environment to be in. You're in the middle of somebody's life. Um, it's not great for them, it's not great for you, but you learn to make it work for the benefit of the patient. And when it's home care, it stops being a patient. It's a child. It's a child who wants to go out and play with friends or go to their Girl Scout meeting or whatever else you know is going on in that child's life. Without nurses, Elizabeth couldn't go to school. She wasn't safe in school without a one-to-one nurse for most of her life. So that was a big part of our team, and it took a while to get good at fitting those people in. In fact, as Elizabeth got older, she really took part in helping to select, in a sense of, even though she couldn't speak, she was able to, communicate with us and let us know if somebody was preferred staff or not preferred staff for her. If people didn't approach her with respect and dignity, she was not going to allow them to stay and care for her. So I know that's kind of a long winded answer, but I really wanted to talk about what this team looked like for our family and just kind of highlight some of the ins and outs. And in fact, when Elizabeth was at the end of her life, we needed people who are different, who are able to kind of roll with the whole hospice idea. Not all nurses are comfortable with that. Not everybody is built and designed to help somebody at the end of their life. So again, that was another team for a different season.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of stress on you and the family. And at some point, I know you talk about this. You talk about self-care and how important that is as part of being the caregiver and the advocate for your child. What are some tips and ways that people can start kind of developing a self-care routine?
It's such a good question. So I have to be honest, Marian, I was not the best at this. It took me a really long time to learn that I just I mattered too. That every family member, whether it's siblings or parents, even my mother, everybody in the family is important and needs to be cared for. Everybody's needs need to get met. But it just did take me a really long time. I always felt that twinge of guilt. Sometimes it wasn't a twinge, it was more like, a hammer over my head for, leaving her to go out to a movie or have a glass of wine with a girlfriend. And finally, as she started to get older and I realized that, I was falling apart literally, I just knew that I needed to take, short little trips. And also, Caroline, my other daughter, she needed that too. So I combined some of my own self care with caring for her. And we would go on these little, weekend trips to kind of get out from under the constant trauma that was going on in our home with all the medical interventions. And it was really good for us. And, that again also looks different for everybody. Somebody might enjoy going to the gym, somebody else maybe, just getting out to walk their dog. Whatever that looks like for you, you have to take those moments and that little bit of time for yourself. You just are going to sink otherwise. And I know because I came teeteringly close to the edge.
I think any family would. I mean, it's a lot of pressure to hold. And it touches on something that I think a lot of people have major concerns on when we talk about special needs children, because at some point, typically, as parents, we're older, we're going to age out and come to a point where we might not be here to take care of them. So what's the next step? How does that even work?
Yeah, that's a huge part of our practice, actually, consulting about those transitions. And part of, step one is to kind of get your documents right. So you do need to kind of put your plan down on paper. And that includes thinking about who those next generation of caregivers and decision makers is going to be. That is really hard. And it's probably the reason that most people don't sleep well at night because they're really worried about that. They have a right to be. It's pretty difficult to take care of our family members, and we love them, to the ends of the earth. It's hard to think about people who aren't in love with our family members and how they're going to be able to manage this care themselves. And then who's going to watch over that care system and continue on to be that expert and just all of the things that we have been able to do over decades of being with our child or even our sibling. But you have to get started because if you don't put a plan in place, then, somebody else is going to make those decisions for your child, whether it's a government agency, a court system, some more remote family member or friend. It really needs to be done by you. It kind of starts with just writing down what your wishes are and then developing a plan from there and taking a look at your professional team and having them help and have input and guide you. That's really where it begins.
It's a discussion I know a lot of people don't want to have, but it's a needed discussion because, anything can happen at any time until you look at this going, I could be in a car accident or something can happen and you want to make sure that these things are set up. So special need children are at least living to the same level that you would expect had had we still been here.
Right. And really, this is the reason that I started out with writing the book. I do a lot of writing. I try to get out there. I speak nationally, and I have a podcast now too. Not everybody can afford an attorney. Not everybody has the the sophisticated special needs attorney in their backyard even. But the information is key and critical. And because we have all of these great electronic mediums now, we can get this information out to families to help them start working on that plan. There are a few pieces that probably can't be done without a lawyer, but so much of this really is just done within your circle, within your team.
Now, can you work with people regardless of where they are?
No, we actually only have a license in Massachusetts, but we have a network of people that we work with who are awesome, and we get calls from all over the country. So we are very, very good at connecting people with somebody in their area that can help them.
Where can our listeners learn more about the book and the work that you do?
So the book is on Amazon, and it's readily available in all your usual places, although Amazon is the easiest. And specialneedscompanies.com is our main website that has a lot of information. It's got the information about the podcast on there, where I'm going to be speaking, a lot of great blog posts that are informational, and some connections to other organizations. And there are a couple that I want to highlight that are national. The Academy of Special Needs Planners is a great place to go to find a practitioner in your area, and also to find resources in your area. And the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, that's NAELA, .org, is another place where you can go to find a practitioner and also get great resources in your area. So you can come to our website to find us, and also you can go to those other websites to get started on your journey in finding that special needs professional to help you plan.
Well, that's so important. I felt your book, Butterflies and Second Chances, while it's a very moving story and heartfelt story, it's one that needs to be told. I think a lot of people out there need this information.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative that you've given us this opportunity to talk about it today. It's just a dream of mine to make sure that Elizabeth's life continues to have meaning and that we continue to spread a message of hope out there.
Annette, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Annette. It's been such an honor to spend this time together and talk about your story. Again, if you would like to pick up a copy of Butterflies and Second Chances, you can at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Daniela Petrova, and she's here to share with us her new novel, Her Daughter's Mother. Now, Daniela grew up behind the Iron Curtain in Bulgaria. She came to the U.S. in her early 20s and earned a BA from Columbia University and an MA in counseling for mental health and wellness from New York University. She is the recipient of an Artist Fellowship in Writing from Massachusetts Cultural Council. So let's welcome to the show, Daniela Petrova.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. And I've got to say, hey, congratulations. You've been getting some amazing reviews about this book.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've been thrilled with the response.
Well, and I understand you're a debut author, so with having this book out there, you've got to be so excited that it's been picked up and people are just loving it.
I'm absolutely thrilled, yes. And it's been a long journey for me. I started dreaming about becoming a writer back when I was a little girl in Bulgaria. I grew up in Sofia, Bulgaria during the communist regime. And so it has been a long journey. So I'm thrilled to finally have my dream come true.
Well, and so, gosh, I've got so many questions for you, and you just opened a huge door with talking about Bulgaria. But why don't we start with your inspiration behind writing this book?
Yes. So let me think. I went through infertility with my ex-husband. And as I was going through this long, complicated process, I thought, oh my God, it would make for a great premise to have a woman who is pregnant with the help of an egg donor, and she starts obsessing about the young woman whose genes her baby will inherit and starts stalking her and maybe even befriends her. And then what if that young woman mysteriously disappears and the pregnant woman finds herself a prime suspect in the investigation? So this is how the premise for the book was born.
Was it really difficult writing in regards to, your own experiences about infertility with the book, or is that something that just kind of flowed?
To be honest, there's little about infertility really, only in the beginning. The main character, Lana Stone, has been struggling with infertility, and at the opening of the book, she becomes pregnant, and the rest of the book, more or less, is about this unique relationship or this unique triangle between two women and a man. The mother who is pregnant, the father of the baby, and the young woman who is their egg donor. And so, yes, I knew a lot about the process of IVF and giving yourself injections and stuff, which was a nice background. And writing about it wasn't hard at all. Actually, it was easy because I didn't have to do extra research. But emotionally, if anything, it was cathartic to be able to take this experience and create something out of it. So it was, it felt all right, yes.
Well, and why don't we have you share a little bit for our listeners about your book? Because it's a novel. We don't want to go too much into it because we don't do spoilers here. But why don't you share a little bit about her daughter's mother?
Yes, so as I mentioned, it's about 38-year-old woman, Lana Stone, who has been struggling with infertility. She and her partner, they've been trying for a long time. And finally, they have decided to try using a donor egg cycle. They have invested their last savings in this fertility treatment. And just before the procedure, before the embryo is transferred into Lana, her partner, Taylor, he decides that he has had enough and leaves her. He says, I need a break. We need to have a break. And she is faced with a choice because she knows that this is her last chance to have a child. She'll never again, on her own, be able to save enough money for other fertility treatments. And she already knows that her eggs are too old. And so she decides, as she says in the book, this is her last chance, and he can have many children if he wants to, but this is it for her. And she decides that it should be her decision, not his, whether she will experience motherhood and whether she will get to experience the kick of a baby and the birth of a baby. So without his knowledge, she decides to proceed with the cycle. And from here on, she becomes intrigued by her egg donor. It's a young woman, a foreign student from Bulgaria at Columbia University, and by the name of Katya. And Lana starts stalking and befriends her, as I mentioned. And the two become fast friends. Their relationship is very interesting. They're both drawn to each other. And but unfortunately, a few weeks later, Katya disappears. And this is where the novel basically takes off.
Now, you talk about the relationship between Lana and Katya as being, in the book, it looks really extreme. And do you think that there's a draw for women who, become pregnant through egg donation, try to find the donors and really befriend them?
I don't think that happens in reality. There are two ways to go about it. There are people who decide to do anonymous cycle, and in cases like that, you don't know the donor and she doesn't know you, and all the information you have is what's in her file. So you don't know her name, but the donor has an assigned number. And then you know a little bit about her health history, her education. Also, usually donors write a little essay why they want to be donors. And so this is all the information you have. A lot of couples also can decide that they want to know their donor. And I have a lot of friends who decided to go that route, and they met with the donor. There's some agencies who allow that. There are also couples who decide to use a relative, like a sister or a cousin of the wife or of the father, so that it stays in the family and sort of genetically can be more attractive. And so in that case, they will know the donor. So there are different ways to do it, but I haven't heard of anyone, if they choose to do anonymous cycle, then later on going and trying to find that donor. This is entirely my imagination, wondering what if, right? Like, that would be an interesting situation. And in my novel, what I thought was, what if Lana, newly pregnant, by chance encounters the donor on the subway, and that sparks her need and her hunger to know more about the woman whose genes her baby will inherit.
So you have both main characters as having origins from Bulgaria. Was there a specific reason that you did that?
Yes. Well, first of all, as I mentioned, I'm from Bulgaria and I wanted to honor my heritage. The second reason is because I thought that in a story about motherhood and a story about a mother worrying that her child will not inherit her genes, I thought would be interesting to bring in a different ethnic angle. And so as a Bulgarian, she thinks, if my baby can't inherit my genes, then at least I wanted to have the genes, the blood of my people. So that leads her to look for an egg donor who is also from Bulgaria and shares her ethnic genetic makeup. So that was why I thought it would be interesting. But I also loved writing about two women who are very, Lana is a first generation, or rather second generation immigrant. Her mother had immigrated and is Bulgarian, and Katya is a foreign student who has recently come to New York to study at Columbia University. So they're very different in that respect. Lana grew up in Chicago and is very American, unlike Katya. But also Lana sees in Katya a lot of her own mother, starting with the Bulgarian accent, which I'm sure you can hear. I also have it, and a lot of other Bulgarian cultural aspects.
Well, I find that fascinating how you brought a lot of your own story into this and adds a lot of flavor to this book.
Right. I hope so. I hope readers enjoy this additional flavor.
Well, and so when we talk about her daughter's mother, did you set out to write a book that had a lot of suspense in it as well, or is that something that just developed as you were writing the book?
I did. It started out with the premise very early on. It was sort of a mystery. What happens to the egg donor? But I didn't want that to be the only thing about this book. I wanted the suspense to drive the reader turning the pages, but I also wanted to have to explore relationships and secrets and lies and betrayals and what effects they have on relationships. I wanted to explore how we can hurt each other unwittingly. So often we hurt those we love most without meaning to, because of our own fears and insecurities, which we keep locked deep inside. And so while it is a suspense novel, I also wanted to explore different aspects of motherhood and relationships and friendship.
Were there any ethical questions that kind of came to your mind as you were writing this book?
Very much so. Things that I haven't even thought about before I started writing the book. For example, what rights does the donor have in terms of the baby in a case where, let's say, the parents are abusive or negligent, or what happens if the parents get killed, and does the donor have any right to know what happens to the baby? Also, what about the parents of the donor who, genetically speaking, are the grandparents of that baby? What happens if, in the event of the donor's death, do they have the right to know that they have a genetic grandchild somewhere that, their dead daughter now, that her life continues through that child of hers, genetically speaking? Yes, a lot of questions were coming up to mind, especially also in terms of a couple, like the couple in my book. What happens if they have a baby using a donor, whether it's a sperm donor or an egg donor, and what happens in the event that they split up and one of the parents in that case is genetically not related to the child, and if the child is not born yet, they haven't yet been named the legal parents, then what happens in terms of custody? There were all these moral and ethical questions that were coming up as I was exploring the story, and I found really fascinating.
Well, and it's interesting with, genetic testing being made so available today, where people can submit, a test and see kind of if they have other people who have submitted tests, if they are relatives, these things could pop up, unknowingly.
Exactly. And, another interesting question about the child. Does the child have the right, has the right to know, and whose duty is to enforce that? I have a lot of very good friends who used an egg donor, and they have been talking, like, when is the right time to tell their child? And there are a lot of books, thankfully, these days that talk about different ways of becoming parents and can help introduce that idea to children at a young age, so that it's not that huge shock that some people have experienced as adults. And there have been some wonderful memoirs, like the memoir by Dani Shapiro, about finding out that her father actually genetically wasn't, and they had used a procedure in early fertility treatment with the help of a sperm donor. But yes, it's uncharted territory, and you can be an adult and find that you have all these siblings, half siblings, especially with sperm donors, and there are a lot of different scenarios that can happen, and so it's good to explore the possibilities and try to come up with answers for all these different options.
Now, you have New York City as part of the backdrop for this book. Why did you choose New York?
I've lived in New York for nearly 25 years, and I love the city, and didn't have to think twice about where I will set this novel. But also it fits perfectly to the story. It made it really easy for the characters to blend in the crowds on the street, and it makes it possible and easy for people to actually follow each other or to stalk another person. But also in a big city like New York, I wanted to show how easy it is for people to feel lonely and desperate. And so it was the perfect fodder for the story, the perfect setting.
Mm-hmm. It would seem like it, because there's just so much going on, and you can kind of understand where people feel really disconnected because everyone's doing their own thing.
Exactly, absolutely. And you could be in the middle of Times Square, surrounded by crowds of people, and feel extremely lonely. Yeah, as I said, I love the city, and I wanted to set a lot of the um, scenes in the book take place in iconic locations like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Central Park, Columbia University, and the campus, the area around there. So it was wonderful writing about these beloved locations.
So I understand you have a background in mental health counseling. How did this help shape the story?
Oh, yes, that was very helpful to me. I spent 2 years studying mental health counseling and wellness, and a year I did my internship working as a therapist for young women with eating disorders at the Center for Anorexia and Bulimia here in New York. And that experience helped me understand a little bit better relationships and our own hesitation to open up to the people we love and reveal our insecurities or our pain and suffering, and how often we much rather keep quiet or lie or not mention something important, and that leads to far bigger problems than it would have been if we had just opened up from the beginning. And so that knowledge was very helpful as I plotted this story.
Yeah, I could see where you had it really interwoven and it brought your characters really to life and made them very, relatable. Because I think a lot of people, get into these positions where they have self-doubt or lack of confidence, and you can kind of see some of that within the characters.
Exactly, yes. And it was important to me that they're complicated characters. I wanted to show different sides, and while evil people can do a lot of damage, I find it a lot more interesting and more heartbreaking when they're well-meaning, ultimately good people who end up doing something bad or unethical or something that makes them the villains in the story. And I found that really interesting exploring in this novel.
So, what is your writing process like? When do you find time in your schedule to write?
Uh, so I am not particularly organized, and I don't have a specific routine. I don't necessarily recommend it. It somehow worked for me. I wish I were one of those people who got up every day at 5 o'clock and started writing first thing, and wrote 5,000 words before noon. I actually can't do that. I find it really hard. So basically, I write whenever I can, and there are days when I write all day long, and I can do that 2-3 days in a row, and then it will be followed by 2 days where I don't have any time to write, or I am just feeling blocked and can't come up with anything. So I would say I'm all over the place, but somehow it worked in the end. It's a process that's working for me, but I wish I had more of a routine. And I know a lot of other people have like lucky charms or a lucky routine that they do before they start writing. I don't. I just open my document. Sometimes I reread what I wrote the previous day. Sometimes I just start from scratch. I believe that when you are immersed in a story and write pretty much all the time, if not every day, as often as possible. It brews in your mind even when you're not writing. And so I would come up with ideas, when I'm in the shower or walking or at the gym. So I think in essence, you're writing all the time, but you have to get to that place. And it takes days and weeks sometimes to get into that place, which is why I don't like to take a long break, because then I'll have to go through this process again of getting into the story, immersing myself into this world and the characters.
Yeah, that can be a big job, kind of getting back into your groove, and
exactly
going from there.
Exactly, yes. It's hard. It takes a lot of days and weeks, perhaps.
So what advice would you give new writers who are looking to start with their own book?
I would definitely recommend taking classes. Classes have been very helpful to me. I have been taking classes for the past 2 decades. Even back when I could barely speak English, I was trying to write, and I was taking creative writing classes. You can learn so much, not only from the teacher and the instructor, but also from your classmates. It's wonderful to learn from great examples and great writers, but you also learn what not to do, both in your own work, but in the work of your classmates. So I very much recommend taking classes, and if not classes, then joining a writing group and reading or giving your work to other writers to read. And I think it's really important to develop thick skin early on, to be open to criticism, because this is how we learn. You have to know what's not working so that you can fix it. And it's not very pleasant to hear and to take criticism, and you can give yourself a day or two to process. But it's important to know that it has nothing to do with your abilities as a writer. So much of it is craft, and learning the craft is very important.
Well, Daniela, where can people connect with you and learn more about your book and be part of your community?
I am on social media at Daniela G. Petrova. I'm also, I have a website, danielapetrova.com. But yeah, everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm out there.
Well, Daniela, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It was my pleasure.
Well, thank you, Daniela. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new novel. I know it's getting great reviews from Oprah's Magazine to Hello Giggles. Everyone loves it. Again, you could pick up a copy of Her Daughter's Mother in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Mary Ann airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.